Senate Transportation Committee will come to order. Eric, could you call the roll, please?
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Everyone, welcome to the final meeting of the Senate Transportation Committee. I believe we have 10 bills here before us today, and I would like to start off with Delegate Supermaniam. Are you there, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Just to go over something real quick, we heard this bill from Senator Bell, but some of the folks who were in opposition to the bill never got an opportunity because of, I believe, some kind of a technical problem, never got an opportunity to present. So after you present the bill, even though we've heard it before, I would like to hear from those folks, and then we'll take a few questions from the committee, and of course anybody who's in favor of the bill as well. So Delegate Supermaniam, please tell us again about HB 1832.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, this bill is identical to Senator Bell's SB 1259. This had to do with the Greenway Toll Road, and that passes through Loudoun County and part of Clark County. It basically clarifies ambiguous terms in the statute. The statute here is the Highway Corporation Act, which only deals with this road. And so, I'm happy to answer questions. I know there was a lively debate about this legislation, but I hope it'll be the will of the body to pass this bill again.
Thank you, Senator Delegate Supermaniam. Could we? Is there anyone in the room in favor of the bill that would like to speak? If you could.
Those that would like to speak in favor, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. Raise hand. Leo Rogers, whenever you're ready, please go ahead. Leo Rogers, please unmute and go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Leo Rogers. I'm county attorney for Loudoun County. Loudoun just contested the current toll rate increases that the Greenway was seeking through the State Corporation Commission, and we definitely support the bill of Delegate Supermaniam and Senator Bell. These bills are intended to regulate the Greenway as a public service company, typical to other public service companies regulated by the State Corporation Commission. There is absolutely no validity that these bills have any constitutional impairment to them, or that there's a statutory contract with the Greenway. In fact, the Greenway has changed the legislation before, back in 2009, to have an automatic toll rate increase. So they indeed have changed the legislation. It is before the General Assembly to decide what the law is. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you so much, sir. Any questions for the county attorney from Loudoun? Okay, next.
That was the only speaker who wanted to speak in support of the bill. Oh,
okay.
I apologize. Someone else has just raised their hand. Miles Loria, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I believe he is in opposition to the bill. Mr. Loria, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you so much. Did someone else want to speak in support of the bill?
We do not appear to have any other speakers at this time. No other speakers in support.
No one else. Miles, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Miles Loria on behalf of the Dulles Greenway. Mr. Chairman, the Greenway is a 100% private toll road. Not $1 of public money has gone into the development, land acquisition, construction, or operation of the road. The Dulles Greenway pays property taxes. It's one of the very few toll roads in the world that does that. And as a matter of fact, they are one of the largest property taxpayers in Loudoun County. The Greenway's users come from across Northern Virginia, Mr. Chairman, including Frederick, Clark, Fairfax, and Loudoun counties. They've one clear message for us, for the Greenway. They want lower tolls, and they want a more equitable tolling system. Now, Mr. Chairman, the problem is HB 1832 doesn't deliver either one of those things. It doesn't deliver positive change. HB 1832 effectively requires the Greenway to come to the SCC every year for a toll increase. That's all the bill really does. So what do yearly trips to the SCC for toll adjustments actually get you? Well, if you're the SCC, it gets you a huge headache and a huge increase in the time and resources necessary to decide rate cases. If you're the Greenway, it increases the costs associated with the SCC proceedings, which will unfortunately flow back to toll road users in the form of increased tolls. And if you're Loudoun County, it increases your costs, again, associated with the SCC proceedings, because the county will undoubtedly be a party to these proceedings year after year, which will invariably cost Loudoun County taxpayers money because they're the ones that are footing the bill. Now, Mr. Chairman, there's another bill on your docket, another Greenway bill, HB 2104, which is an administration bill that provides a path that will allow VDOT to work directly and collaboratively with the Greenway to implement equitable changes to the tolling structure that will benefit all the toll road users. To put it simply, HB 2104 is the only bill before your committee and before the General Assembly that can deliver lower tolls and distance-based pricing. And Mr. Chairman, to give you an idea in context about how this came about, VDOT approached the Greenway last year to collaborate on a solution that would deliver lower tolls and the distance-based pricing that the toll users want. In response to VDOT's request, the Greenway has engaged in good faith to find the type of long-term solution that the citizens of Loudoun and all the citizens of Northern Virginia have been looking for. HB 2104 provides the opportunity to deliver lower tolls early as next year and distance-based tolling shortly thereafter. Lower tolls as early as next year and then distance-based pricing thereafter. It really begs the question, why not embrace the administration's efforts to bring lower tolls and distance-based pricing to the Greenway? Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, HB 1832 will not solve the challenges associated with the Greenway. This bill does nothing for toll road users, period. What it does do is impose additional logistical and financial burdens on multiple public agencies as well as the Greenway. The only way the citizens of Loudoun County and Northern Virginia are going to get lower tolls and distance-based pricing is if the rhetoric and political grandstanding stops and meaningful negotiations between the stakeholders begin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Loria. Are there questions for Mr. Loria from the committee?
Mr. Chairman. Senator Eben.
Senator Eben, floor is yours.
So I would ask Mr. Loria, who's going to provide oversight if this bill fails? What assurances do we have that increases would be prudent or reasonable?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Eben, the SEC is still going to be in charge, and this SEC still is going to have jurisdiction over any request for toll rate increases.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Loria. Delegate Subramaniam, could you resume? Would you come back into the room? And I have just a question and a comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Thank you. First off, I find it. Do you see it the same way I do, Delegate Subramaniam? That when you're only allowed to do 1 year of data at a time to determine a rate increase, that the Greenway folks are going to have to request a rate review every year?
I would agree that if they want to increase rates, they would have to come back the next year to increase rates. I don't agree that they need to increase rates to begin with. And I think that if they do need to increase rates, that they should have to come back if their plan is to increase rates every year. Mm-hmm. I think that's the issue, is they've increased rates so much that, and the costs that they've incurred through putting debt on the road and other accounting tricks, I would call them, that if really what their goal is to provide to recuperate what they've done to build out the road and maintain it, and plus a profit, if that all, assuming that they've all been able to do all of that, the total increase does not justify, that we've seen does not justify if that was all they're out to recuperate. So I would say that while yes, they would need to come back every year for an increase, they shouldn't have to increase to begin with. Would be my.
Well, I would assume that would be based on the data and the circumstances at the time. But wouldn't this put us in a situation where we are essentially in a never-ending rate review, that the SEC, as soon as they finish 1 year, they start on the next year? Because if the Greenway folks waited for 3 years, they would only be able to review one of those 3 years. The most recent is the way I read the bill. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say to that I would rather, and as you can tell, the county would rather, and as you can tell, the people of Loudoun County would rather come back every year than guarantee increases for 10, 20 years, which is what we fear any sort of unilateral deal with administration would be, even if it meant lowering the tolls for a few years to begin with.
Okay, and just one last comment or question. What is the end game in this particular scheme that this bill lays out, this way forward? What is the end game here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say the end goal, really what's happening with this road is it's an equity issue. A lot of working families in my community and others in Loudoun County just, they can't afford to take the road. And it's in many ways the only way to get to work every day. They're spending thousands of dollars. I met one person who said they spend $1,000 a month on the road, but it's the only way to go unless you cut through neighborhoods, you cut through other roads. It's a really difficult issue. It's led to Loudoun County spending tens of millions of dollars or more on alternative roads so that people aren't cutting through neighborhoods. And so that's why you hear Loudoun County here willing to spend the resources to fight any additional toll increases, because they're spending the resources otherwise on alternative infrastructure because a lot of folks just can't afford to use the road.
Thank you, Delegate Subramaniam. We have up on the list to speak Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Subramaniam, I appreciate you carrying this bill. For those who are listening, you need to understand this is a carefully crafted compromise bill. It is supported by Republicans and Democrats. The entire Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County supports it, as well as former members of the House of Delegates who are on both sides of the aisle. We believe that this is the best path for us to move forward, to make a more fair and equitable transportation system for our community in Loudoun County. And I just want to thank the delegate for carrying this bill, and when it is appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we pass this.
Thank you, Senator Boysko. Next on the list was Senator DeSteph.
And I have one question.
Okay, Senator DeSteph is next on the...
Mr. Chair, I'll yield. I believe that there was another question from Senator Boysko, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, never mind. Okay, Oh,
You're up.
Mr. Chairman, no problem. Two quick questions for Delegate Subramaniam. My first question is, I used to live up there, and Route 28 was one of the alternatives you could take. Is that now go through neighborhoods, or is that no longer free?
Mr. Chair, I would tell the senator that Route 28 is actually perpendicular for the most part to the Greenway toll road. So I wouldn't call Route 28 an alternative. I know there's some roads that feed into Route 28 that you could take along with Route 28 to circumvent the Greenway. Hopefully that answers your question.
Mr. Chair, two quick questions,
DeSteph.
if I may. And Delegate, the first question, I believe it's Route 7 and 28 up there that you could take as an alternative. And I don't remember, but I don't believe either of those went through neighborhoods. Does that now no longer alternatives, or is there no free alternative available?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would tell the senator that Route 7 is indeed parallel to the Greenway. So you're correct that Route 7 could be an alternative. Again, the county has had to make substantial investments in increasing the number of lanes on Route 7, not necessarily just because of the Greenway's pricing. There's just been a large increase in the population as well in Loudoun County. And so that has meant more pressure on some of these types of roads. Hopefully that answers your question as well.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it does, and I just want to summarize. So Route 7 is parallel to the Greenway. I completely understand that, and it is a free alternative. But, Mr. Chairman, I guess the question or my comment on this, and speaking to the bill, would be if a private entity back when I lived up there, which seems like 100 years ago, and was still in uniform, that private entity, I believe they paid somewhere between $100 and $200 million at the time to build a road out in the middle of nowhere that just went. And the only thing I remember being out that way was Dulles Airport and some of the other government agencies. But, Mr. Chairman, they put $200 million into this road, I believe it was at the time. And it's currently a private road. So if you want this private road to be affordable or free, why wouldn't the county just go in and buy the private road from the individual who owns it or the individual group? That sounds like an alternative that would be a viable one. And in my opinion, in Virginia Beach, if we have a traffic issue, we go in, if there's a private road or something we want, we just go in and buy it and then turn it into a public road that anybody can use. And that way we would never have to have them back and forth here about getting the SEC involved and getting everybody else involved with this. And heck, I'm sure if you gave them a pretty decent return on investment, they'd be happy to sell it to you.
Mr. Chairman,
It would be a big investment. Senator Stanley.
question of the patron, Delegate Subramanian. Delegate, you've heard from Senator DeSteff in terms of what the original investment of the road was and how much it cost to build it. How much was that actually?
Mr. Chair, I would imagine the senator knows better than I do, but I believe it was around $300 million is what the price is supposed to be on the road, but they've, I think with the debt and everything put on the road.
And that's my next question then is, but how much debt has Trip 2, the owner, the current owner, Trip 2, an Australian hedge fund, how much debt service do they carry on that road in excess of what it costs to build?
Mr. Chair, I was telling the senator, I think it's about around $3 billion.
$3 billion, which, further question, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Stanley.
Which, quite frankly, is none of that money has gone into maintenance or upgrade of the Dulles Greenway, has it? It's just debt service they've piled onto it, using it as a collateral asset. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, I would say yes.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. The one thing I will follow up with Senator DeSteff is that Route 28 now blends into Route 7, which is now all separated grade intersections all the way to Leesburg, and that has put a drain on things because that road is much quicker than it used to be. Senator Favola, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear. If there is no rate increase, then no application or anything has to go before the SEC. Is that correct?
Well, in this particular bill, the only thing that the Greenway could do, if they have a case, and I don't know that they would have a case for a rate increase, they would have to do it yearly because most rate increase cases, like for Dominion or Power or for whatever, they would do that every 3 years, and it would accumulate, and they would have a case. But in this particular case, the bill would require it to be done yearly, which means that unless they chose, they didn't have enough evidence or whatever, but if they did, it would have to be done yearly. Thank you all very much. Anyone else have a question or a comment? I believe we had Senator Boysko would like to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I would just like to just point out, I do live about a mile off of the toll road, and it can take me 20 minutes to get from the town of Herndon to Leesburg if I take the Greenway. It will take me, if we have rush hour traffic, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and I do have to go through neighborhoods to get onto 28 and Route 7. So there are real serious problems, and many of my constituents pay upwards of $500 a month just on their transportation costs. But so with that, I appreciate the delegate for carrying this, and I move that we pass the bill.
We have a motion and a second to pass the bill. Clerk, would you open the rolls and please record your votes? Scott, strike the roll.
You took enough public comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
We got everybody
Got one?
that was on.
We got all the speakers?
Yes, I believe.
Oh, I thought we had more than one. There was oppositions. I apologize.
Nope, it's fine.
I think we were good.
You opened the roll.
Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised to speak at this time.
There were no hands raised. So, all right. Could you reopen the roll and please record your votes?
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, noes 5. The bill reports. Congratulations, Delegate Subramaniam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have a very, very special presentation here from Delegate Mark Keem. Delegate Keem, are you there for House Bill 1841?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members, and I certainly shouldn't take much time from you today, but I think the reference that you're making about my being special is not me, but some of the constituents that I worked with who brought this bill to you. I have House Bill 1841, Mr. Chair and members, and the idea behind this bill was originally from some of my Girl Scouts in the town of Vienna who had a family member who had some low vision issues, and they realized that their loved one was having trouble with some of the crossings in the area because some of the crosswalks had designs that were a little bit hard for people with low vision to recognize. And as they did more research, what they realized is that throughout the Commonwealth, we have at least 6 different types of designs, which I'm sure they all have good reasons why they're there. But from a low vision perspective, it wasn't necessarily as clear as it could be. So they asked me to carry a bill. So we worked on a legislation. And as I was presenting this in the House side, what we realized is that the U.S. Department of Transportation is currently undertaking a program to review and revise their what's known as the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices for Streets and Highways book, which I'm sure you all know about this. I don't know very much about this. And so as the Department of Transportation is updating this, our state's counterparts are reviewing some of our rules to see if there might be some compliance issues and such. So rather than having us do any kind of a law changes immediately here, what would make sense is for our Department of Transportation to develop a little work group of low vision folks, other people like my constituents, come up with a little bit of a stakeholder process where they can go to the U.S. Department together, raise some of these concerns, understand what's going on, and then come back to us with a study that we might be able to address together. So that's really what the bill does. And I believe my constituents may still be here. They were lined up earlier. So
I sure hope so, Delegate Keem. I had the opportunity to talk to them on the phone, and I've been looking forward to the opportunity to see them almost in person. And so if they are in the room, I'd love to have them testify first, and then we'll get to anyone else who's in favor or opposed.
Mr. Chair, I believe they're moving into the room now. Peggy Boris, whenever you're ready, please unmute and go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Maria Boris, and because of today's ice storm, I am representing Vienna Girl Scout Troop 1673.
Welcome. Well, we're excited to hear about your project. Tell us, what do you have in mind for the Commonwealth of Virginia to do to make crosswalks safer for those who are visually impaired? What you got in mind?
We are trying to put together a working group to study different crosswalks and determine which is the best for those with low vision.
Very good, very good. Now, do we have a question from Senator Cosgrove? Senator Cosgrove.
Well, yes, thank you so much for being with us this morning. One question, and it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with crosswalks. When are we getting our cookies?
They are selling them right now. I'm sure that you can find them at any local supermarket, or you can contact our troop directly.
I hope so, because I love them.
It has been there's been a referendum in the city of Chesapeake, and Senator Cosgrove gets no cookies. So, at any rate, do you have any other witnesses from the troop here today?
Maria has prepared something to say.
Okay, please go ahead.
One day, as our troop was walking back from the cookie sale, we noticed how faded a crosswalk was. My mom and troop leader couldn't see it and needed help crossing the street. She has Usher syndrome, which causes combined deafness and blindness. This bill is so important to me because one day it may protect my mom or grandmother or grandfather or my friends. I love my mom more than words can express, and if anything happened to her, I don't know what I would do. Due to the rapidly aging population, the low vision community numbers will double by 2030. Let's keep all Virginians safe. I understand that there may be some budgetary concerns of implementing high visibility crosswalks, but is a bucket of paint really worth her life or the life of someone you love? Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. And I know that there are 15 senators in here right now who are hoping that you don't move into their district someday and run against them, because that was a very compelling argument. Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else in the queue wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
Those who speak in favor, please use the Zoom feature raise hand to indicate that you want to speak in support.
I have a motion when you're ready.
At this time, there don't appear to be any hands raised.
How about opposed?
Those who would speak in opposition, again, please use the Zoom feature raise hand. There does not seem to be anyone who wishes to speak against it.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we report the bill with an editorial comment that I do hope a representative from the Brownie Troop gets to sit on the stakeholder group or be consulted.
That would be an excellent idea. Do we have a second? All right, we have a first and a second here to approve this stakeholder group. Could you open the roll, please? And senators, please record your vote. Oh, man.
I can strike the vote.
That's going to go down in history, Senator Robinson. It is.
That was an error.
That was an error. Could I have a motion, please, to reconsider?
Mr. Chair, having voted on the prevailing side in which we passed.
Motion to reconsider is before us.
Okay, and we have a second. All those in favor of reconsideration, please
Aye.
vote your ayes.
Vote on the board.
Vote.
For reconsideration, yes, sir.
Reconsideration is a
Vote on the
recorded
board.
vote.
Yeah. Dave, vote.
There we go. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may have the privilege of moving to report this fine bill, I would be grateful.
Well, Senator Obenshain, I have one question. Would an improved crosswalk improve safety for horse-drawn vehicles in Rockingham County?
Yes, it would.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we're reconsideration before us, and so the bill is before us. Senators, record your votes.
Now this is to report, yeah.
There we go. All right.
Go. Good work, good work.
Good job, Girl Scouts.
Good
Thank you
job.
so much.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I'm surprised that Senator Distaff hasn't given you the Girl Scouts cookies already. He usually does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next bill is HB 1854 from Delegate Rip Sullivan about U.S. Route 29 and the County Manager Plan of Government. Delegate Sullivan, tell us about HB 1854.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Talk about a tough act to follow.
Yes.
I did not bring any wonderful brownies or Girl Scouts with me, although Senator Cosgrove, I have a closet full of Thin Mints I'd be glad to share with you.
And just know, Delegate Sullivan, we will not be as kind to you. So.
I'm sure that's right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, HB 1854, as the chairman already described a little bit, authorizes the board of a locality using the county manager plan of government to name any section of Route 29, which in my neck of the woods is known as Lee Highway. Any section within the boundaries of that locality, this empowers the board to rename the road if it should so choose. The bill goes on to provide that the DOT will place the appropriate signage, but that the locality will pay for all that signage. So there is no FIS associated with the bill. For those of you who haven't traveled Lee Highway or Route 29 lately, it's known as Lee Highway from Roslyn to Falls Church. In Falls Church, it's known as Washington Street. In Fairfax City, it's known as Fairfax Boulevard. So my point of mentioning that is it has different names in different localities, frankly, in different entire parts of the Commonwealth. The road at one point was in the early 1900s, actually was a transcontinental road. And it has been named lots of different things over the course of the year. Arlington has put together a citizen work group and has been looking at this issue for the last, I want to say, year at least, and has been taking a lot of input. The board has not yet made a decision if it's given the ability by this body to rename Lee Highway, what it will rename it, although it has it down to several finalists. So that is the bill. It's not a very complicated bill, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Delegate Sullivan. I will add that there are parts of, and maybe all of Route 29 that is named also in honor of the 29th Infantry Division, which is the group from Southwest Virginia and Kentucky who went ashore at D-Day, June 6, 1944. So a very historic road. Questions from, questions for the patron. Senator Distaff.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Delegate Sullivan, I mean, I've sat in transportation for a few years now, and I believe that this body is normally the one that renames a road. We normally don't aggregate that down to a locality. Maybe that's something for that's my question is, don't we normally rename roads?
Delegate Sullivan?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Distaff, there are a variety of different ways roads can get renamed. I believe the Commonwealth Transportation Board has a role to play in certain situations, and I'm sure this body can indeed, if it wants to, name a road, but I'm not sure certainly there's no prohibition against a locality doing it if it's so empowered by the General Assembly, and that's what this bill would do.
Oh, okay. Other questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion when you're ready to.
Oh, okay. Let's see who's in. Let's see if there's anyone in the queue.
At this time, there does not seem to be any hands raised to speak to the bill.
There's nobody. Okay. No one wishes to speak. There are no questions. More questions for the patron. Senator Favola.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we report the bill.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second to report the bill. Would you open the rolls, please? Senators, record your votes.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Ayes 8, no 7s. Delegate Sullivan, you snuck out of here. Congratulations.
And without a Girl Scout. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you. Next, we have up House Bill 1868, which deals with commercial driver's licenses and disqualification for life from holding that license if convicted of humane trafficking. Delegate Delaney, are you with us?
Yes, hello, Mr. Chairman. Hello, committee.
Good afternoon, Delegate Delaney. Could you tell us about HB 1868?
Yes, of course, Mr. Chairman. The bill before you requires the Department of Motor Vehicles to disqualify an individual's commercial driver's license for life if that person is convicted of a felony involving human trafficking, including sex trafficking and indentured servitude. This bill also prohibits the courts and the DMV from masking or concealing convictions against an individual who possesses a CDL in accordance with federal regulation. Finally, this bill removes a statutory prohibition on commercial motor vehicle operator trainers from administering the CDL examination. The legislation brings Virginia into compliance with the Federal Motor Vehicle Carrier Safety Administration requirements and will prevent the Commonwealth from losing substantial transportation funding. Additionally, given the relationship between trafficking and commercial driving, this change prevents traffickers who have been convicted from continuing to use their vehicles in crimes in the future when using a commercial vehicle. And the bill does provide the DMV with the authority to allow private businesses to administer the CDL knowledge test in accordance with the federal regulations and remain compliant with state law.
Okay, Delegate Delaney, just one question before I open it up to the floor. So, if someone was involved in human trafficking but did not use a vehicle of any kind, did not operate it, and what have you, would they be eligible for a CDL at some point in time when they got out of prison?
They would be disqualified from having access to a CDL. There is a huge correlation between commercial driving and human trafficking. And so this is a very important correlation to note that, those two things unfortunately really go hand in hand, and our highway systems are a major thoroughfare for human trafficking. And so this would certainly help to address that.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Delegate Delaney. Questions from the committee? There don't seem to be any questions for the...
Mr. Chairman.
Who we got?
Senator Stanley.
Senator Stanley.
Ask Delegate a question if I can. And
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate, and I'm just trying to understand the parameters of the bill because, we think of human trafficking in certain ways, coyotes taking children and women across the border and using them for nefarious purposes. And I understand exactly what you're trying to get at because a lot of the human trafficking can involve the trucking industry or those bad players in the trucking industry, at least. The question for me would be, if I had a client, then if this bill was law, and I had a client who came to me who had been convicted, let's say, of solicitation of prostitution, and the alleged victim was someone who had been human trafficked from Guadalajara, who was then put into the trade, but maybe my client, the truck driver, didn't know that. Would this bill subject that truck driver, if he's convicted, to a lifetime ban of his CDL, thereby depriving him of his profession?
Mr. Chairman. So I would respond. I will note that I think Commissioner Holcomb or a representative from the DMV may be here in the room as well to offer some specific clarity on that. But my understanding of this is that this is someone who has to be charged with sex trafficking, which would not necessarily be the charge that the buyer of sex trafficking, they would usually be charged with solicitation or something similar. Trafficking would be the charge that would typically be reserved for the person who is the seller, who is, has the girls that he is profiting off of.
Further questions?
I thank the chairman. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Those who would speak in favor of the bill, please use the Zoom feature, raise hand. Dale Bennett, please go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Bennett, yes, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Dale Bennett, representing Virginia Trucking Association. We very strongly support this bill. We, as organized folks in the industry, are working very hard to rid the industry of this heinous crime. There's an organization called Truckers Against Trafficking that has worked very hard to train thousands of truckers all across this country about how to recognize the signs of human trafficking or suspected human trafficking and sex trafficking, and then how to report that to the appropriate authorities. And we have a very case that was in the news here several years ago where that happened just outside of Richmond, off of 64 in New Kent County, where a driver recognized suspicious activity, reported it to law enforcement. They came, and lo and behold, there was a young lady who had been kidnapped from the Midwest and was being prostituted and severely abused. And they helped rescue that lady, and the two people involved in committing that crime were prosecuted and found guilty and are now serving probably not enough years in jail for their acts. So we very strongly support this legislation as part of our effort to rid our industry of this heinous crime.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Appreciate that. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions of Mr. Bennett? Is there anyone else in favor?
1 second. Do we have anyone else in favor? Please use the Zoom feature, raise hand to indicate. It does not appear so, though we do have two others.
Okay, is there, with great trepidation, I ask, is there anyone opposed to the bill?
Well, we have two other speakers, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure what their positions are. But
okay,
we have,
let's take them.
Sandy Jack. Sandy Jack, please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. Millicent Ford with the Department of Motor Vehicles. We appreciate Delegate Delaney carrying the bill for us. It is an agency bill, and we very much support the bill.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ford. Anyone else in favor or opposed?
Patrick McKenna, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
It's a little bit light. If you could speak up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I don't know why my video is not working, but I want to first thank the committee for allowing me to rise on behalf of the Virginia Coalition Against Human Trafficking. It's an anti-human trafficking organization working to remove barriers that would prevent survivors from leading a full and healthy life. I want to thank Delegate Delaney for bringing this bill. There's two ways to help end trafficking. One of them is to disrupt the pipeline. This bill would go a long way to help curb or potentially curb somebody's willingness to participate in the trafficking of individuals by removing their ability to drive, so to have their commercial driver's license. So we strongly support the bill and hope that it will be the will of the committee to vote in favor of passing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. McKenna. Anyone else?
That appears to be all our speakers at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Obenshain.
I don't know that anybody has any concerns, but in response to Senator Stanley's bill, or his question, excuse me, the bill refers to severe trafficking offenses as defined under federal law, and if it gives anybody any comfort, those offenses truly are severe. It's sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, in which the person induced to perform such act is under 18, or the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. So these are pretty significant offenses. It's not just somehow, innocently or semi-innocently stumbling into a situation in which a John is procuring services. These are significant offenses.
And Mr. Chairman, may I ask Senator Obenshain a question? This is Stanley.
Senator Stanley.
Now, looking at that definition, if you look one down, it then defines sex trafficking. And and maybe I'm missing in the bill, but so this bill only refers to the paragraph above, not the definition that follows for sex trafficking?
It deals with Section 11, severe forms of trafficking of persons.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
anyone else have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. First off, I object to Senator Obenshain's use of the terminology John. Anyway, you call it a mark if you want, but anyway, look, this bill makes a lot of sense. I think there's peace. It came out unanimously from the House, and I move its passage.
I second that motion.
Thank you. And Senator Cosgrove, a mark is someone who's taken advantage of by a John. So that's the way that works. All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Could you open the roll, please? Senators, record your vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Thank you, Delegate Delaney, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
All right, next, we have my counterpart in the House and good friend and former colleague when I was in the House, Delegate McQuinn, Chairman of Transportation. Madam Chair, HB 1926, how about telling us about your bill? Oh, I went by it. I'll get it. And we'll get back to Delegate Jenkins in just a moment.
Mr. Chairman, it doesn't look like Delegate McQuinn is on the line.
Okay. Is this a...
I can try to, I think it's straightforward. I can explain it, and then if it...
Please go ahead, Lisa.
Last year, the General Assembly created the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. For the Richmond region, this bill adds the executive director of the Port Authority as an ex officio non-voting member of the authority because the transportation related to the port is an important part of Central Virginia transportation issues.
Okay. And this bill came out of the House 99-0. Do we have anyone in the room who wants to testify on this bill, either for or against?
We do. Dustin Reinhardt, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? I don't think you can see me.
We can hear you, sir. Please.
Turn on my camera. Yes, sir. There we are. Yes, this is Dustin Reinhardt with the Port of Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, as well as members of the committee. This is a port-sponsored bill that we requested for Delegate McQuinn to carry. We hope that we have your support of this. Having a seat at the table to speak freight and freight fluidity in the Central Virginia region is important to us, particularly as we continue to grow at Richmond Marine Terminal and connect our terminals outward to grow our volumes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anyone else in the queue to speak?
There does not appear to be any other speakers.
Thank you so much.
Report.
Straightforward bill. Do we have a motion on the bill?
Second, there was a motion.
We have a motion and a second to report.
Yes, Senator McClellan.
Senator, you have a question,
Can I
Senator
second
McClellan?
No, the motion is made. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to report. Could we open the rolls, please? Senators, record your votes.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill reports. Delegate Jenkins, are you out there? And I'm sorry I passed you over there for a second. I got lost in my paper shuffle.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, please tell us about House Bill 1887, Foreign Market Vehicles, Titling and Registration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. House Bill 1887 is another straight and simple bill. It's simple. Its goal is to align the Virginia Code with the federal regulation. The DMV has a long practice of issuing negotiable titles to foreign market vehicles that are 25 years or older. Upon review of the state code by the DMV and the Attorney General, it was determined that the DMV should not be issuing negotiable titles to these vehicles under the current language. This bill will extend the exemptions to federal standards to include foreign market vehicles manufactured 25 more years ago, not only to manufactured prior to 1968. Again, it's simply, this bill is to align the Virginia Code with the federal regulation.
Well, thank you so much. Any questions from the committee? Seems like a fairly straightforward bill. Came out 99-0 in the House. Is there anyone with a question? Anyone in the queue to?
Mr. Chair, we have two speakers. Dylan Bishop, please go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Dylan Bishop on behalf of Japanese Classics LLC. I won't trespass on the committee's time, but we appreciate Delegate Jenkins introducing this piece of legislation. It merely comports Virginia law with the federal import standards, and it would permit a number of novelty auto importers in the Commonwealth of Virginia to continue to operate their businesses here in the Commonwealth. So we appreciate once more Delegate Jenkins introducing this legislation, and would hope that the committee would act favorably on this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Anyone else in the?
Elizabeth Rafferty, please go ahead.
Ms. Rafferty.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and I would just like to say that we'd appreciate your support on this. It will align the code with current DMV practice as well as federal regulations, and we'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is the Department of Motor Vehicles wish to add any comments to the testimony?
Mr. Chair, just that we appreciate Delegate Jenkins sponsoring the bill. It is an agency bill, and so we very much support the bill.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Move the report, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second to report. Could we open the roll? And please, senators, record your vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill reports. Congratulations, Delegate Jenkins. Next, we have HB 2075 dealing with Jefferson Davis Highway. Delegate Cole. Delegate Cole, are you there? Tell us about your bill.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. HB 2075 is a bill to rename sections of US Route 1 in Virginia designated as Jefferson Davis Highway to Emancipation Highway. This bill has a delayed enactment clause for a simple purpose. We are removing Jefferson Davis Highway, and localities can change the name before January 1 of 2022. And if they don't, we will change it for them. Just so that everyone understands the background behind this, we initially were going to rename the highway Loving Memorial Highway, but late in the midnight hour, just before session started, the family reached out to us and asked us not to go with that. So we conducted a quick poll, and Emancipation Highway won with 44% of the vote that we conducted online. And so I would just hope that it would be the privilege of the committee to pass it on.
Okay, a wonderful moment in American history memorialized. Thank you, Delegate Cole. Any questions for the patron?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
To the patron, when you say we, you're really talking about the state, right? Because you're crossing multiple jurisdictions when you say that any section of Route 1 that is designated as the Jefferson Davis Highway shall, on the effective date of this act, be designated and known as Emancipation Highway. So this would be a state action for the entire Route 1 if it happened to be named Jefferson Davis Highway. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Senator Favola, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Serval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representing, I think, what is now the longest stretch of Jefferson Davis Highway, probably anybody in the legislature, I believe I had a question for the patron. So, first of all, I think Prince William County has already submitted its application to the CTB to change its section into Richmond Highway. Is that correct, Delegate Cole?
Mr. Chair, Senator Serval, that is my understanding, and I believe the CTB has also approved that as well.
Okay, second question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Serval.
So then the highway then picks up the Jefferson Davis name in Stafford County through my district and into yours, I guess. And it's my impression that the Stafford County Board of Supervisors likewise either has or intends to submit a petition to the CTP to get their section changed before the effectiveness date of this bill, right?
Mr. Chair, Senator Serval, that is correct. The Stafford County Board of Supervisors voted on December the 15th to rename Richmond Highway, and that is currently before the CTB.
Great. Mr. Chairman, further questions?
Senator Serval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so I guess the CTB now has, 11 months to approve that in order for Stafford County's request to take effect and rename it Richmond Highway then, right?
Mr. Chair, Senator Serval, that is correct. And going off of the time frame that they did the Prince William County, it only took them 3 months to complete the Prince William County request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking of the bill.
Senator Serval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think this bill is an appropriate solution, which gives the localities time to exercise their discretion to deal with this, and it gives the CTB plenty of time to assist. And I would just note that if any of my localities that I represent would like my assistance helping them with the CTB process, I'm happy to help if they would just give me a call, and I'm sure that both myself and Delegate Cole will be happy to help them. So I think this is a good bill.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Cole, I have one question. Will there be a situation here where where emancipation could potentially become the name of a portion, and then it turns to Richmond, and then back to emancipation, or vice versa? Is that likely to happen?
That's a good question, Mr. Chair, and I would refer to
General Counsel.
VDOT?
To counsel, yes, to counsel for to answer that.
Okay. Well, first off, is VDOT in the queue and able to comment on that?
They just joined the Zoom room, I believe.
Mr. Chair, I was waiting to enter the room, but here let me I'm geographically challenged right this minute, but these are the localities that currently exist that through which Route 1 currently carries the name Jeff Davis Highway: Chesterfield County, Caroline County, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, and then Stafford counties. So it's possible that perhaps Fredericksburg may change the name. For instance, Caroline might change, the name might be changed to Emancipation. Then Fredericksburg, it might, or it could be Emancipation, but then Stafford or Spotsylvania may change the name differently to Richmond Highway. For instance, we know Stafford has an interest in changing it to Richmond Highway. So there's a possibility that you might go from one name to another back to the other name. I would note that there are portions of Jeff Davis Highway right now, I'm sorry, Route 1, that have different names. That currently don't carry the Jeff Davis name. So that would not be a phenomenon that is unique to or the result of only this naming effort.
Yeah. Ms. Maxwell, do you see any confusion being created by somebody who's on Emancipation Highway, then is on Richmond Highway, and then back to Emancipation, and wondering whether they've, somehow or another gotten off the beaten path?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe so. Again, we've got, for instance, in Henrico, Route 1 is called Brook Road. In Hanover, it's called Washington Highway. So they're already differing names, and I've never heard complaints about confusion.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Maxwell. Anyone else?
And Mr. Chair, if I could.
Delegate Cole.
We have a similar situation here in Stafford County as well. On Route 1 in Stafford County is referred to as Jefferson Davis Highway, but a small 3 to 5 mile stretch as soon as you come in from Fredericksburg City is called Cambridge Street. So even in Stafford County, we have that situation where you pop from Richmond Highway, Jefferson Davis Highway, Cambridge Street, Jefferson Davis Highway.
Okay, thank you very much, Delegate Cole.
Mr. Chairman, Servo.
Senator Servo.
Mr. Chairman, speaking to the bill, I would also just note that I believe it's Richmond Highway in Arlington, is that right? And then
Alexandria.
No, and in Alexandria, and then it turns into Patrick and Henry Street through Old Town, then it turns back into Richmond Highway, and it'll be Richmond Highway now, hopefully all the way to Spotsylvania.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
All right.
in Richmond, it's Arthur Ashe Boulevard. In Colonial Heights, it's the Boulevard. So, yeah.
We've done this before.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman, move the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one person in the room who wishes to speak to the bill.
Okay, we have, if we could suspend for a moment to hear from a further witness.
Yeah, Robert Lamb, please unmute and go ahead. Robert Lamb, please unmute and go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. My name is Robert Lamb. I am a resident of Spotsylvania County and a lawyer and a veteran. I served 2 tours in Vietnam as an infantry officer with the 1st Marine Division. So I approach this bill from the standpoint of a veteran and someone who respects veterans. In the last regular session in 2020, there was a bill that amended the statute dealing with war memorials for veterans of certain wars. And that bill, the philosophy behind that bill was to take, instead of doing this, having the state dictate to localities how they wanted to treat the memorials within their jurisdiction, they said, okay, the localities should be given the ability to decide whether or not to remove memorials for relating to veterans of certain wars. And similarly with the bill that you just heard recently about Section Right 29, the same thing was going to happen. Let the localities make the changes if they so want. Now, under existing law, as you also heard, a number of places like Alexandria, Arlington, Prince William are in the process of doing that, which is fine if they want to do it. But a lot of localities have chosen, for whatever reason they might have, not to do it. So why in the world would you impose a state dictate on them? Makes no sense. It's inconsistent philosophy. It should be up to the localities themselves. That's one reason. So the whole policy on this is skewed. Well, number 2, there's a practical reason for dealing with this. It's a nuisance and a cost inconvenience to make changes to signage, stationery, licenses, mailing addresses, etc. that would be imposed upon businesses and residents along routes that have to change their name. And so that's a consideration. Number three, Jefferson Davis was a war veteran in the Mexican War, and he was a hero. He was wounded, and he was a hero at the battles of Buena Vista and Monterrey. He was the most impactful Secretary of War in our history. He was a resident of Richmond for 4 years when Richmond and Virginia were at the epicenter of world history. And lastly, at the request of Virginia and Richmond, his body was reinterred in Hollywood Cemetery. So I think it's rather disgraceful to change this name. It's inimical to the philosophy that was exhibited in that bill that passed last year, and indeed in the bill that was just taken up just recently in this committee dealing with Section 29. The localities that want to change that name will be changing the name. The ones that don't want to won't.
My understanding of this bill, pardon me, Mr. Lamb, for one moment. Delegate Cole, this is a name change in one particular county?
Mr. Chairman.
No, Mr. Chair, the bill is through a couple of counties, Spotsylvania, the city of Fredericksburg, Chesterfield, and I think it's a total of 4 counties. But again, it's still permissive. They have until January 1 of 2022 to change the name, or else we will pass it and change it ourselves.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Serval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listen, I appreciate, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I appreciate his concern to some extent, but the reality is that this highway was named against the will of these localities back in, I believe, 1920-something, pursuant to an act of the General Assembly. And so the General Assembly is the one that named it Jefferson Davis Highway. And what the General Assembly taketh or giveth, the General Assembly can taketh away. And I believe that the method that Delegate Cole has come upon here isn't exactly a mandate, because we're giving the localities the opportunity to rename it a different name if they so choose. Otherwise, we're giving it a default name, which doesn't carry the political baggage that is associated with its current name, which a lot of people today find offensive. And so I think this bill strikes a reasonable balance between all the policies and lets these localities have their say. If they want to have it, they just can't use this one name anymore.
Mr. Chairman, again, I move to approve the bill.
We have a motion and a second to report. Any discussion? Any further questions? Clerk, would you open the roll, please? Thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Mark? He left.
Senator Sirleaf.
Okay.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill's report. And thank you for your research and your time, Mr. Lamb. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of.
All right. Thank you. And congratulations, Delegate Cole, on your bill.
Mr. Chairman. Senator Cosgrove.
Delegate Cosgrove. Senator Cosgrove.
That's the second time today I've been called delegate.
All the time.
Old habits, I know. Mr. Chairman, just as a point of courtesy for the committee members, the last 2 bills I've wanted to make a couple of points. I've been using this thing. I'm not sure if that's working over there. But
you know, it may be, but I'm so focused on the screen, so just
call
out.
I would just ask the members, basically, before you. It always seems like it's a race to say, "I move to report," okay, especially in here. So if there are members that want to discuss these bills, please give us the opportunity to do that.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Certainly. And the next bill we have is Senate Bill 2104. Delegate Reed.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and actually that's House Bill 2104, so I'm kind of getting the reverse promotion that you were taking away from Senator Cosgrove.
All right.
So,
Delegate Reed, tell us about HB 2104.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So House Bill 2104 is an administration bill that was being discussed with the administration over the late part of the fall and the winter. And I know that you've already had a vote on House Bill 1832, which of course I'm a chief co-patron on and very much supportive of. And I will share with you the way that we discussed this in the House is that these two different bills had the potential of being complementary because the bill that Delegate Subramanian has since had passed, it deals with the current state of affairs, and the administration's bill, House Bill 2104, deals with the potential future state. And so therefore, the two pieces of legislation were not necessarily in conflict. This provided a permissive language that would have allowed for the Commissioner of the Highway, working with the Secretary of Finance and the Secretary of Transportation and the P3 Board, to be able to move the Dulles Greenway out of the Highway Corporation Act and into the PPTA, and have the potential of being able to reduce tolls as well as implement distance-based pricing. Now, as the bill was working its way through the House, the Loudoun Board of Supervisors actually took a vote, and they voted 9-0 that they did not want to proceed with this particular piece of legislation, that they wanted to proceed exclusively with the legislation that Delegate Subramanian and myself had put forward in House Bill 1832. And to that end, one of the discussions with the administration as we were going forward was that they were only going to move forward with House Bill 2104 if the Loudoun Board of Supervisors was interested in going down that path. So we have an issue here where the administration has stepped forward and has put forth an option to move forward, but the Board of Supervisors has indicated that they would like to pursue a different approach at this particular point in time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Delegate Reed? We have in the queue Senator Boysko.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I have a motion, but if you'd like to have
let's
some
hold off
discussion
on that
first,
and
thank
see if we
you.
have any other questions or comments from the
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Senator Eben.
Senator Eben, yes.
Yeah, just to ask the sponsor, what does he want to see happen to this bill now, based on his previous comments?
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Reed, please.
Go ahead. Thank you. Senator Eben, that's a good question. And I would say that, again, I'm going to defer to the decision of the Board of Supervisors in that they have said, I mean, they voted 9-0, that they did not want to pursue this path at this particular point in time. And so I'm respectful of their decision.
So that means Mr. Chairman, to follow up, is he asking us to strike his bill?
I don't believe, I have spoken with Delegate Reed and some others on this bill. I don't think that would be an appropriate thing to do here. Delegate Reed, I don't believe that is what your intent is at this time.
No, no.
Mr. Chairman, Servo.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Servo.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of this Greenway talk, and I appreciate it's an important issue to people who live around it. I would also note, though, there's other people that use it. I use it to get to court. I spent $11 on that road one day after my daughter forgot her softball uniform, and I had to drive back and forth on it to go meet my wife in Tyson's Corner and be in time for an 8 a.m. game. And so there's lots of people who use the road. I'm just trying to understand what is the end objective of all the various bills that we're seeing, because I'm trying to understand where this is all headed.
Mr. Chair.
Who we have?
This is Delegate Reed.
Delegate Reed, please.
Yeah, so Senator Servo, again, the two different bills are somewhat complementary, but again, the Loudoun Board of Supervisors has said that they would like to stake their approach to House Bill 1832, and I support that. House Bill 2104, again, provides a potential opportunity for being able to move forward, but the Board of Supervisors feels much more confident. I will also share, Senator Servo, as the discussions were ongoing with the administration, because the Board of Supervisors would prefer to be able to actually have some decision in the role of moving this from the Highway Corporation Act to the PPTA. And they'd also like for the General Assembly to have some role in that decision. But in discussions with the administration, we have a very non-political P3 program, and they do not, meaning the administration, do not want to inject politics into this by having a local Board of Supervisors or the General Assembly get involved with approving a potential deal. And so the administration, again, has said that if the Board of Supervisors does not want to move forward with this approach, then they're not going to pursue it. They have other priorities that they can focus on for transportation around the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Delegate Reed. Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. Question for Delegate Reed. Delegate, I'm being very serious. I'm looking for your preference on this. There's a couple of things that we can do with this bill, either here in committee or maybe on the floor or whatever. But there's the motion to table, there's the motion to PBI, and there's a motion to report. We're just trying to figure out, or pass by for the day, thank you. We're just trying to figure out, what do you want us to do with this thing?
Mr. Chair, Senator Cosgrove.
Go ahead.
I think at this point, in the discussions with the administration, that it is probably not the Board of Supervisors' desire that this bill go forward, and so therefore I am respectful of that.
Okay.
Thank you for your very honest answer. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And,
Mr. Chairman.
We have,
Mr. Chairman,
no, hold on. We have.
you let me ask one question. I'll follow up. But all right.
I'll get back to you, Senator Serval. Senator DeStaff.
Mr. Chair, I had a quick question for VDOT.
Ms. Maxwell, you there?
She is moving into the room right now, Mr. Chair.
Hello, Mr. Chair. This is Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. Also, I would want to point out that Nick Donahue is on the line, and he may be in a better position to answer any questions that might be posed.
Mr. Secretary, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Deputy Secretary Donahue, I'm present in the room.
Oh, okay. Would you care to comment on the question?
Mr. Chair, I probably need to ask it.
Okay. Senator DeStaff.
Mr. Chair, Secretary Donahue, or Deputy Secretary Donahue, my question is, given your perspective, or give your perspective, and then can you get to distance-based pricing and lower the tolls with this bill?
Mr. Chairman, to Senator Steff's question, one, I want to thank Delegate Reed for putting in the piece of legislation. We were engaged with discussions with the owners of the Dulles Greenway to evaluate whether or not there is an opportunity by transferring their regulatory structure from the Highway Corporation Act to the Public-Private Transportation Act to reduce tolls and implement distance-based pricing. Senator Steff, directly to your question, can I today promise you that that would be an outcome of this process? I cannot. What I can tell you is we believe there was an opportunity to do so, which is why we asked Delegate Reed to put forth the legislation. As Delegate Reed has noted since that time, we've had some feedback from Loudoun County, particularly a 9-0 vote expressing opposition with the legislation. There, again, we did believe there was an opportunity. An opportunity does not mean that that would be realized. It means that there was a potential.
Okay. Any other questions, Senator DeStaff? Okay, Senator Serval, you had a follow-up question I didn't let you ask, so you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to hear what VDOT said, and they just, I think, said it. So.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Senator Spruill. Senator Spruill, you have a question?
Yes, sir. To the delegate, I had committed to support this bill the way that you want it. My question now will be all over the place. My question is for us to satisfy me because I gave my word I would support it. I'm asking you, how do you want me to vote on this bill? I don't have no other way to put it. Because I told you I would support it, and now I'm hearing different things. I'm confused. I'm asking you straight out, how you want me to vote on it?
Senator Spruill, if I could rescue Delegate Reed here, I think he's throwing out some broad hints that he might be okay with a negative impact here, Delegate Reed, did I answer Senator Spruill's question?
Senator Marsden, Senator Spruill, I appreciate your willingness to support the bill. Again, as Deputy Secretary Donahue indicated, as this has worked through the process, and as we were working through the House and then coming over to the Senate, again, the Loudoun Board of Supervisors voted 9-0 to say that they are not supportive of this particular approach going forward, and they want to focus on just House Bill 1832. That is the legislation that you've already approved with Delegate Subramanian and me being a chief co-patron on that. So again, I'm deferring to what it is that our local Board of Supervisors has said, how they want to proceed.
I appreciate that, but I'm never going to run for governor. So it doesn't matter to me what your Board of Supervisors say. I want to know what you can say.
There we go. All right, we have 4 more people in the queue: Senator Favola, then Suderline, then Peak, and then Boysko. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this is a question for Deputy Secretary Donahue. There's nothing in the future to preclude us if, in fact, the approach we adopted earlier with Subramanian's bill, if for whatever reason that doesn't yield the results we're hoping it yields, some later date we could adopt a public-private partnership model. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Chair, Senator Favola, that is correct. If at any point in the future the General Assembly decided they want to pursue this, you would need authorizing legislation to allow for the road to move out of the Highway Corporation Act to the Public-Private Transportation Act.
So, Secretary Donahue, the issue would be that there is remedies if things aren't going well in the future. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that the General Assembly could, if they in the future decided they did want to pursue a path of this nature, they could pass a bill at that time to do so. If that
Okay,
was
great. Thank you so much. We have Senator Suderline next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's crystal clear. I don't have any questions. I'd like to yield to Senator Boysko.
Well, we have Senator
for
Peak
the purpose
first.
of a motion.
Okay, we have Senator Peak first. Senator Peak?
I was just going to comment on the bill.
Certainly.
And I don't have a question either, but I know we're getting ready to vote. But this does concern me that we had a bill, there were two-pronged attack. You have obviously a private partner of the Commonwealth of Virginia who's invested at least hundreds of millions of dollars to provide transportation to citizens of the Commonwealth. They have a bill that's coming forward that came through on a 99 to 1 vote, 90 to 9 vote out of the House, and now we're abandoning it in the Senate committee. And I wonder, it concerns me the message we're sending to private companies who are doing business with us. It concerns me what's going to happen as far as their contractual rights down the road. And I don't feel like we're giving them a fair shake with this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Peak. Senator Boysko.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for the time, and I would like to thank our sponsor, Delegate Reed, who I know has worked tirelessly over the past several years on this issue, along with the other members of the delegation in Loudoun County. It has been very clearly indicated to me, as well as to Delegate Reed, that the Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County have made it unequivocally opposed to this bill. In respect to their request, I am going to ask we gently pass this by indefinitely with all due respect to everybody who's been involved.
Oh, okay. We have a motion to PBI. Do we have a second?
Second.
Senator Favola seconds. Any further discussion? All right. We have a first and a second to PBI the bill. Clerk, would you open the roll?
That's interesting. Ayes 9, no 6.
Ayes 9, no 6. The bill is PBI'd. Thank you so much, Delegate Reed. I know how hard everyone has worked in Loudoun County on this very, very complex problem with the only road of its kind, I believe, in America. So thanks so much for your diligence, and thank you to the administration for offering this potential solution. Next, we have HB 2163. Which is Delegate Kathy Tran. It deals with limits the release of privileged information to government entities from the Department of Motor Vehicles. Delegate Tran, are you there?
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Tran, please tell us about HB 2163.
Sure, I look forward to doing so. I do have a substitute that needs to be moved.
All right, do we have a motion to move the substitute?
So moved.
Do you have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? substitute is before us, and Delegate Tran, you want to tell us about the bill and how the substitute affects the bill?
Great, I will do so. I do want to start by saying that we do have Peace in the Valley amongst a wide array of stakeholders, and I want to begin my comments by thanking Sandy Jack at the DMV, who has provided sometimes early morning and sometimes late night technical assistance so that I could get this right. So thank you very much, Sandy. Let me give you the context for the bill, and then I'll talk about the difference in the substitute and the original version that came over to the Senate. You know, almost everybody has at some point applied for and received a credential from the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles. When doing so, we give our names, our addresses, descriptions about our physical characteristics, and for some people, even our medical information. So the DMV has a lot of our private data. The DMV also has a lot of ways that they share our data, all for legitimate reasons, but they have 4,000 data sharing agreements. On top of that, through the Virginia State Police, other criminal justice entities and other entities are also able to access our data. So what this bill does is provide some pretty good guardrails to make sure that we are protecting our private data that the DMV holds. It does not change the reasons why various entities are able to access that data, but it just makes sure that we are protecting that data. So one, in order to receive DMV privileged data, all entities must have, with some good exceptions to that we worked with through the DMV, but entities must have a written agreement. They can only use and share the data they receive for the reasons that are outlined in that written agreement. And that includes if they have to aggregate the data as well and share it. And I just want to put a pin on that because I think many of us have seen different articles and read about the research that shows how some of our third-party vendors do, play a role in selling our private DMV data. And sometimes that's, aggregated. And the reality is, and the research shows, you don't have to be a true rocket science to de-anonymize aggregated data back to the individual. So it's really important that we're also protecting that aspect. The second important piece of this bill is that it codifies the framework for an MOU between the Virginia State Police and the DMV that was signed earlier this year, where it allows the DMV to essentially approve any new entities that accesses its data as the data owner through the state police. So this is, I think, a really important step. The DMV previously didn't have a say in how its data was being shared through the various state police portals. And so this helps to codify and memorialize that aspect of the MOU. I do want to note that if there are emergency situations where state or local police or a different type of criminal justice entity needs to, they're able to access the DMV data for public safety situations. The third piece is that this bill provides guardrails in terms of how data is shared with ICE. You may recall that we passed a bill last year to offer immigrants, regardless of their immigration status, an opportunity to apply for driving credentials. So it's a driver privilege card. That law became effective on January 1 this year. And so we want to make sure that ICE is not accessing DMV data in order to surveil, people that they suspect might be undocumented and putting those individuals who just went and got a driving credential in order to drive to work or drive to the grocery store, putting them on a path to deportation. And that has been happening in other states across the country where driver privilege cards are available. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen here in Virginia. By making sure that there are strong protections when the DMV data is able to be shared with ICE for civil immigration enforcement. So in those instances, ICE must have a judicial order, subpoena, or warrant. Additionally, this bill just codifies the ability of the DMV to conduct annual audits with the entities that it has data sharing agreements for. And that's taking place right now already. And then lastly, it requires the Virginia State Police to provide an annual report to the DMV and the General Assembly on a list of the different governmental entities that access the DMV data through its various portals. So I look forward to our conversation today and really appreciate a lot of work from a diverse group of stakeholders to get here.
Okay, and the substitute?
Oh, the substitute has a couple of different technical edits. The substitute helps to affirm some concerns that our data or our third-party data providers had to make sure that they can continue to do their operations. So it has some technical edits to clarify that we meant, looking at privileged information. It also exempts certain types of vehicle data as privileged under Section 209 in order for these entities to perform their market research on vehicle usage. And then the last thing was it added 2 different sections to make sure that the protections we're offering in Section 408 apply to other instances where the DMV is also releasing data.
Oh, okay, very good. Are there any questions for the patron? Oh, okay, no questions for the patron. David, do we have anybody in the room that would like to speak in favor of the bill?
Those who would speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand to indicate so. Simon Sandoval Mosenberg, please go ahead.
Simon, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you this evening. Speaking in favor of the bill, Simon Sandoval Mosenberg. I am the legal director of the Immigrant Advocacy Program at the Legal Aid Justice Center. With regards to the prohibition on DMV information sharing with federal immigration enforcement, the problem that we're trying to prevent here is ICE casting a wide net. This is an agency that's known for hyper-aggressive immigration enforcement, racial profiling, and indiscriminate raids against immigrant communities. In the more than a dozen states that have had DPCs of this nature for several years now, we know that the #1 use that ICE makes of this data is really just the list of names and addresses. And that address information was left largely unprotected in last year's legislation, and so that's what needs to be cleaned up right now. ICE can and does get DMV address information in 3 different ways, all 3 of which are protected with this legislation. And it really is a 3-legged stool. If you knock one of the legs out, the stool falls over. First are the direct use agreements with the DMV that Delegate Tran described. ICE in the past has had a direct use agreement with the Virginia DMV, which means that an ICE agent can simply sit down at his computer and at a whim, fire up the keyboard and type in and get whatever he wants. ICE doesn't have one right now, but of course they could easily, tomorrow morning request to renew their old one. And this bill would put guardrails on that. The second means that ICE gets access to driver information is through the VCIN database that the state police operates. And this is the main way that they're accessing the data right now. And it's critically important that, in contrast to last year, this year, the state police is not in the least bit opposing this bill. They're not in here saying that this is going to hamper their effectiveness in any way. It's been carefully crafted by Delegate Tran, multiple consultations with them over the course of the year. And then finally, the issue of the third leg of the 3-legged stool is the third-party data brokers like LexisNexis, Thomson Reuters, et cetera. This is not sort of on our part, a fanciful hypothetical, well, they might in the future try to do this. We want to cover all of our bases situation. In the various states that have, taken steps to cut off ICE direct access to DMV data, in California, for example, ICE really, sort of without blinking an eye, just turned and went straight to these data brokers and bought the access that they wanted and continued their actions without so much as a hiccup. So this is a very integral part of the bill. It's not sort of an add-on. The final thing I'll say is that this bill doesn't prevent ICE from getting anything that they need. All it requires them to do is they can go before a federal magistrate judge on a same-day basis, make a showing of probable cause, get a warrant, and have full and total access to whatever they need. What this prevents them from doing is an ICE agent on a whim, sort of sitting down in front of his computer, looking to meet his monthly quota, sitting down at his desk, typing in some search strings and seeing what pops up. That's what this bill is preventing. And finally, to the extent that ICE is carrying out any sort of criminal enforcement, like, for example, the human trafficking that we heard about earlier in this committee hearing, this bill only impacts the civil immigration enforcement. It doesn't impact the criminal law enforcement at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, how many more speakers we got?
Just one moment, please. Do we have anyone else do we have somebody? Senator DeSteph, do you have a question for Mr. Mosenberg?
Yes, sir, I do, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for Simon, if he can tell me in his eloquent speech, he talked about ICE having a quota. Can he tell me what the monthly quota is for ICE?
Sure. At various points in time, different ICE officers and ICE offices have had monthly arrest quotas. And one of the things that we really saw over the course of the past 4 years with the Trump administration, and that's not to say that this problem necessarily goes away just because there's a change in presidential administration, was large numbers of what ICE considered low-hanging fruit. You know, people arrested who had either no criminal history or what we would generally consider to be exceedingly minor criminal convictions. And, you know, oftentimes ICE uses the DMV data to find these folks, right? You know, if someone is arrested, for example, on a drunk in public, they're released from jail on a same-day basis, and that's how ICE comes to learn about them. They use DMV data to find them. This has happened in several states, and so, you know, that's sort of basically one of the things that we're trying to put an end to with this bill, so that, you know, immigrants who are getting these DPCs, in order to be able to drive legally, try to do things the right way, don't get penalized for that.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to have him thank the gentleman for answering my numerical question of what quota ICE had on a monthly basis, but thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Steff. Anyone else with a question for Mr. Moschenberg? Okay. Do we have anyone else in the queue?
Mr. Chair, we have about 7 other speakers in the queue.
Oh, I tell you what, at this point, could Mr. Moschenberg was very, very extensive in terms of his explanation in support of the bill. If we could just have everyone take 12 seconds to identify themselves and the organization they belong to, and let's start with those in favor of the bill.
If you are in favor of the legislation, once more, could you use the raise hand Zoom function? Diane Alejandro, please go ahead. Ms. Alejandro, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Diane Alejandro, I'm the lead advocate for ACLU People Power Fairfax, which is a social justice, immigration rights grassroots coalition, and we definitely support the bill.
Thank you so much. Next.
Yeli Montano, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Yeli Montano with Gossip, Virginia, and we strongly support the passage of this bill, and we hope that you will pass it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next.
Edgar Ariana Yanko, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Senator Marce and members of the committee. My name is Edgar Aranda Ayano, Executive Director of the Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations. We support this bill.
Thank you so much.
Danny Vogus, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Dan Vogus. I'm with Cinderas, a organization in the Charlottesville community that works with the immigrant community. I want to thank Delegate Tran for bringing this forward. And it's we're in favor of the bill, and it's very important to the community that we serve. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Next.
Danielle Morales, please go ahead. Mr. Morales, we can't seem to hear you. Could you make sure your mic is connected, and please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Daniel Morales, and I am with Seen About Us in Charlottesville. This bill is quite important to the immigrant community in Virginia, and so I urge everyone to pass this bill.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in favor?
Monica Sarmiento, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Monica Sarmiento, and I'm the Executive Director for the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights, a collaborative of 39 organizations, and we fully support this bill. May I read the list of our member organizations that support this bill?
Very quickly, yes.
The Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice of Virginia, New Virginia Majority, Bread for the World, the Commonwealth Institute for Fiscal Analysis, Engage, Tenants and Workers United, African Communities Together, Centerville Immigration Forum, NACASAC, Progress Virginia, Bacalao, Shillington Employment and Education Center, United Food and Commercial Workers Local 400, Neighbors Keepers, Sacred Heart, Hispanic Organization of Leadership and Action, SEIU 512, American Jewish Community, Just Neighbors, Church World Services, ACLU of Virginia, Edu Futuro, Ayuda, SEIU 32BJ, CAPABA, Casa de Virginia, Multicultural Community Center, League of United Latin American Citizens, Cornerstone, Dreamers Moms in Action, Virginia Immigration Intercollegiate Alliance, Korean American Association of Northern Virginia, ACLU People Power Fairfax, Fuego Coalition, Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, Legal Aid Justice Center, Unitarian Universalist of Social Justice, and Dream.
Okay, I think we get the idea. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Could we have anyone else?
We have one more speaker, Kenneth Gilliam. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kenneth Gilliam, Policy Director for New Virginia Majority. We strongly support this bill and want to thank Delegate Tran for carrying this bill that will protect all Virginians' DMV data. So thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in the queue in opposition to the bill?
Those who would speak in opposition, please raise your hand at this time. There do not seem to be any hands raised. There are no hands raised.
No hands raised. Senator Spruill, you wanted to say something earlier?
That's to you, Mr. Chairman. The first speaker did a fabulous job, but you let him talk so long, Mr. Speaker, then the rest of you gave 12 minutes. I hope that we can give him more time because the first speaker talked longer than the candidate, if I want to call it. So I'm saying to give him more time is just ain't fair to everybody else. If you give him 15 minutes almost, then tell everybody they got 12 minutes. So I hope you can at least kind of spread it out so everybody can have an equal time.
Well, I've had further conversations. He was the lead speaker who was designed to present the case. So that's the reason he was given the amount of time that he was. And so with that, we have Senator Favola. You have a question?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, and I would be ready for a motion. I just want to say that what I really like about this bill is not just the context and the fact that we are taking steps to protect data, especially in these sort of phishing episodes that a government agency may be heading, but it's really important that when we adopt frameworks like this, we're making a statement about privacy for all of us. And I think it's well needed, and I'm glad that we really have. I thank Delegate Tran for taking this on and working pretty hard with all the stakeholders. So I would move that we report the bill.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to report. Is there any further discussion or comments or questions on the bill, either of the patron or?
Mr. Chair. I would just like to thank the patron as well. I know that Delegate Tran and I were talking about this months ago. She has really done her homework, worked with all the stakeholders, making sure that the agency and the police are on board with this, and I just want to congratulate her. I think this is a really important bill, and I strongly support it.
Okay, very good. My understanding here is that the House has, this is going to cost some money for the state police to put into operation. So this will have to go to finance, which will meet tomorrow morning. So we've slipped in under the wire here. So Senator Favola, could you amend your bill to report and refer to finance?
Sure. Okay. My motion is such that we report and re-refer to finance.
We have a first and a second to report the bill and refer to finance. Any further discussion? Would you open the roll, please? Senators, record your vote.
Ayes 8, noes 5.
Ayes 8, noes 5. The bill reports. Thank you, Delegate Tran. Good work. Next, we have our last bill is from our newest member, I believe, Delegate Angelia Williams-Graves. Are you in the room?
I am here, Chairman.
Well, welcome to the General Assembly and welcome to the Senate. And could you tell us about HB 2284?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time and opportunity to present this bill. I know I'm the only thing standing between you all in dinner, so I will be brief. House Bill 2284 is the legislative proposal that makes the changes enacted by the General Assembly in the 2020 session retroactive by reinstating the driving privileges for Virginia drivers that are currently suspended for failing to pay court costs and fines in other jurisdictions. If the General Assembly passes the legislative proposal, all of the individuals that were suspended prior to July 1, 2019 will have their driving privileges reinstated unless a person is also suspended for another reason. The long and short of this, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, is that we're cleaning up the 2020 legislation to allow for those who have had their privileges suspended for court costs and fines from other jurisdictions or other states rather, to be included in those that have already been, excuse me, reinstated.
Okay, and Delegate, this does not absolve them of their fines and fees. It just allows them to get their license back and and not use the leverage of the lost driver's license as losing their driver's license as a way of leveraging getting the state getting paid. Are there any questions?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the delegate?
No question, Mr. Chairman, but a statement, if you don't mind.
Senator Sproul.
Mr. Chairman, she's exactly right because this has been done before, and we thought maybe this was not right since July 2019. That because of that when you take someone's license like that, then they'll have an opportunity of not going to work and what have you. So we really appreciate her bringing this bill forward. And when the appropriate time, if there are no objections, I move to report the bill at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to you, Senator Sproul. Is there anyone, any other questions from the committee?
I have one question.
Senator Favola.
Why did we put this as a Section 1 bill? I'm just curious.
I'm sorry? Could you turn your mic on, please?
I apologize. To me, it looks like it's a Section 1 bill. It seems strange to me because it's a direct...
Ms. Wallmeyer, how does that look to you in terms of whether this is a Section 1 bill?
I believe it is. I'm pulling it up to verify that, but I believe that it is a Section 1 bill because it's only applying to privileges that were suspended prior to July 1, 2019. So it's not, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize my video was off. So it's not something of general applicability for all time. It's just to address a singular situation.
So it's that specific time frame.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. If this was something that was to be in perpetuity, then it would be codified.
It would be codified. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's a one-time fix for an existing circumstance and a Section 1 bill. Any other questions for the delegate? Is there anyone in the queue who would like to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, there are no hands raised to speak to this bill.
Okay, we have no hands raised. We operate on a motion. Do we have a motion on this bill? Senator Sproul. Senator Sproul?
With the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sproul. Do we have a second? We have a second from Senator McClellan. Any further discussion? Could you open the roll, please? Senators, record your votes.
Ayes 8, noes 5.
Ayes 8, noes 5. The bill reports. Congratulations, Delegate Williams-Graves, and welcome again to the General Assembly. I believe that concludes our docket, and I just want to say I want to thank the committee for their patience and hard work to get these bills out, and I would also like to thank the staff. Eric Bingham from Committee Operations, David Hessler from Committee Operations, Marianne Horch from Senate IT, and of course, my lifeline and phone a friend, Lisa Wallmeyer from the Division of Legislative Services. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2020. The committee will rise. 21, 22, 22.